And to this day, I don't know how that happened, because you had Mexican women who couldn't speak Ilocano, and of course, and you had Filipino workers who couldn't speak Spanish or English, but they all got married. I don't know how that happened. That is one of the great things that came out of the farm worker movement. But of course, we know that I have to say, many of the brothers, they were older, and so and you can imagine this. That Delano strike lasted for 5 years. For 5 years, and the brothers, the Manongs, they were there every day on the picket line. They never missed a day. They were every day on the picket line for 5 solid years, if you can imagine that. And of course, as you know, and then they went to the boycott. They went to New York City. Brother George, who was like 80 years old, he was one of the people who went to the boycott in New York. So the courage of the Filipino strikers was just incredible. It was just really, really amazing. And of course, guess what? They cooked for us, okay? So we didn't have to worry about, having to make breakfast for the kids every day, because the Filipino Hall would open early in the morning, and the kids would go to have breakfast there, and then we had lunch, and then we had dinner. And so they nourished not only with their spirit, but also with the food that they were able to cook every single day for us. And I do want to mention some of the other Filipino brothers that were part of the executive board. Brother Pete Velasco was the secretary-treasurer of the United Farm Workers. Andy Imutan, a vice president, and of course, the great orator Philip Veracruz. These were all people that really contributed so much to the farm worker movement. So we all made history together, and I think it's something that we can all celebrate. But we do know that at the heart, and of course, the leader of that of the Filipino brothers in the movement was Larry Itliong. He was absolutely the leader, and everybody respected him. Oh, and some of his relationships were strained, like I mentioned before, because the system had to be changed. And they mentioned Ben Gines. It was kind of interesting. I hadn't heard Ben Gines' name for a long time, but Ben Gines and Larry were very close. But then Ben Gines, the Teamsters Union, started to come in, and Ben Gines wanted to go with the Teamsters Union. And of course, Larry said no. Larry said no. And so that relationship was also very strained. And so I just want to thank everybody for celebrating Larry Itliong. He definitely needs to be celebrated for all of the great contribution that he did. And I want to also say thank you to Rob Bonta for introducing that bill for farm workers, because not only does this country need to know what the history of the Filipino farm workers was, but they need to know what the contribution of the Filipino community has been to the United States of America, okay? Because that has not been told. And also, if it were not for the Filipinos, the United States would never have won the war, World War II, because it was the Filipino guerrillas in the Philippines that saved the United States of America. The Hakbalahags, Luis Dorog, and all of that history needs to be told. And also the history of how Filipinos won the independence from Spain, but it was the United States of America that stole that victory from them and went to the Philippines and killed hundreds and hundreds of Filipinos so that the United States could claim that victory. So there's a lot that needs to be told. We think of Larry Itliong, but the history of the Filipinos, contributions to the United States, and also the disservice and the discrimination against Filipinos needs to be told. And so that is still something that we have to pursue, so that people will know. And I think this is the moment that we can do that, because there's an awakening right now. We're going to have ethnic studies, but let's not forget, when we talk about ethnic studies, that we include the history of what the Filipinos and the United States have had to go through, have had to suffer, okay? And especially and of course, every time I talk about this, I kind of tear up, how so many of the Filipinos were denied even to have families in the United States of America because of the laws that were passed here to prevent them from getting married. Lucky Larry Itliong did not obey any of those laws. As we know. So, and I want to thank Larry's family because of the sacrifices that they made. They, like my kids and Cesar's kids, often, they're the ones that really sacrifice, you might say, so their father could be a big leader in the farm worker movement. And I also want to thank all of you for having this celebration here. When you have a humble place here like Poplar, and it does have a history, who would know that Poplar has a history? The first contract that the farm workers signed was with Shenley, and yes, we had an office here in Poplar. And of course, we have that famous moment that I hope some of you are able to read about that when Al Rojas, who was the organizer, was actually holed up in the building because he had all of these young people shooting bullets at our office. And Al called me and said, hey, we're under siege right now here, and we need some help. And so we had to come down here to help him. But it was really interesting. After that happened, when they were shooting bullets at the office, and our people were hunkered down and trying to stay alive, that when the police gave the sheriff's like they said to these young white guys that were doing that, they said, okay, Billy, go home now. Yep. Okay, Billy, go home now. There was no punishment, no arrest. That was a very, very scary moment. And so we had so many wonderful, courageous people that work with the farm worker movement. And so many of you are here today, and I would just like to say, if you can either stand or raise your hand, we have so many of the children of the farm workers that are here today. This is like a reunion, okay? Like a reunion. And we have judges here. We have educators. Lucia Vasquez is here. We have, of course, people that are working for Senator Caballero, okay? We have a city councilwoman. Por favor, se pueden parar. Could everybody stand up that had their family working in the farm worker movement here? To see just the amazing, of course, that would include Rob also. Andres, just to see, not only is this a very historical moment that we're all here together, and we know that the movement continues, that it's not going to end, because we have all of you young people that are going to carry it forward. And the other thing, too, when we think of the violence that took place here, that is now a place of peace and giving, okay? It's a place of peace and giving. So, again, I want to thank you all very much. And as we remember Larry Itliong, and I'm going to say Larry Itliong presente, which means he's present, okay? And so we can really remember and honor this great man. Okay, let me go. Let's go. You say presente, okay? I say Larry Itliong. Larry Itliong. Presente. Larry Itliong. Presente. Larry Itliong. Presente. And now we'll do a couple of vivas for Larry also, okay? Que viva Larry Itliong. Que viva. Que viva Larry Itliong. Que viva. Que viva Larry Itliong. Que viva. Que viva the Manongs. All right. Thank you very much. Muchas gracias and si se puede. Thank you very much. Mabuhay. Mabuhay.
Que viva Dolores!